Welcome back. We're going to continue on two-way tables. So your warm-up, go ahead and pause the video and see how much of this you can fill out without my help and come back and check your answers. So we have some, again, very similar table to what we ended our lecture with the other day, but they are slightly different numbers, so don't just copy your chart here. So we've given you male and females who like cardio versus weights versus both. So I am going to figure out what this number is here first by adding these two together. So 421 plus 347 is going to be a total of 768, plus whatever that number is has to equal 1003. So I'm just going to subtract 768 from 1003. Whoops. I keep hitting my numbers wrong on my calculator here. So that's going to give me 235 total people who like both cardio and weights. And then I'm going to take 118 and subtract it from 235 because I know these two numbers added together have to equal 235. So 235 minus 118 gives me 117. And then I know that this top number plus 481 equals 1003. So to get that, we're going to do 1003 minus 481, which is going to give me 522. Okay, so that's filling in a two-way table like what we did yesterday, if you're given some of the information. Today we're going to practice what do you do if you're just given a bunch of information and you need to make your own two-way table. So when we have a two-way table, we need two pieces of information. That's what gives you your rows and your columns. Okay. So here, when I'm looking at these cards, I notice that we have different colors and we have different shapes. So the colors, we have red, green, and blue. Okay, so I can say yes or no to is it green, is it red, is it blue. The shapes that are on the cards, we have triangles, circles, and squares. I believe that's the only shapes we have. Yep, triangles, circles, and squares. Now, it won't always be three pieces of information versus three pieces of information. Like in our table earlier today, there was 3 versus 2 pieces of information. So that doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do is, this table is actually on this second page of the notes, but just so I can see my information a little bit easier, I'm drawing it down here. But if you printed out the notes, feel free to use those actual notes and flip the page. So these titles that I've created, that's what's going to go into my two-way table. Now I decided my colors were going to go as my rows here. So I have blue already written, and then I'm going to fill in red and green. And then my last row will be totals. Okay. And then my shapes are going to go across the top. So I already put my circle in. So then I'm going to have my triangle and my square. And just to make life easier, I just drew the picture. And then total is going to be here. Okay, so you could write the word or draw the picture, whatever helps. So then I'm going to fill in each part of the table. So I'm going to look for blue circles. So I have one blue circle, and I'm going to cross it off as I go. So I'm just going to put a 1 there. I have 2 blue triangles, and I have no blue squares. So I'm going to write a 0 in there. So I have a total of 3 cards that are blue, which makes sense because I have 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now let's look at red cards. So red circles, I have 2 red circles. So I'm going to put a 2 here. And then I have 3 red triangles. And I have 1 red square for a total of 6 cards. And then green, we have 0 green circles. We have 2 green triangles. And we have 1 green square for a total of 3 cards. And then 3 plus 3 plus 6 would give me 12 total cards, which if I add all these up, I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 total cards, which is good. Now I just need to go back and add up my columns. So 1 plus 2 is a total of 3 circles, and I have 4 plus 3, which is 7 triangles, and I have 2 squares, which I could go back and count up if I really wanted to. I'm just going to remove this a little bit so I can see a little bit better. Okay, so if I counted my squares, I have 1, 2 squares, right? And if I counted my triangles, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 triangles. So all of this should add up when we actually create the two-way table. So if you're just given some information and they say make a two-way table, you want to decide what are my 2 kind of categories, write your categories across with your totals in each row and column, and then total them up, and your final place right here, your far right corner, should be the total number of objects you have, whatever they are. Okay, let's go ahead and create another one. So this table has already been filled out. That's what I had on my other page. I just didn't want to have to keep flipping between pages. Now, there is a homework problem just like this that students tend to struggle with, so please, please pay attention to this. So down here, they kind of gave me a little tally, or like a key, like you would have on a map. So it says S represents self-study, so you studied by yourself. G represents group study. So those are two different kinds of studying by yourself and with a group. So as you can see, I wrote self and group in my row with my totals. Okay. I stands for they played an individual sport, and T stands for a team sport. Again, two different categories together. So we have individual and team up here and total. Okay. So you can kind of see how things go together. So in the homework problem today, please, please make sure you read what each one of these things stand for, okay? That will help you immensely. So just to kind of help myself up here, each one of these is a person. So we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, so on and so forth. So the first person studied by themselves and play an individual sport. So if we go through here, self and individual, that will be an SI person. This will be an SG person. This will be an ST person, and this will be an I'm sorry, I think I did that wrong, I apologize. Let's get the eraser out. Okay, so this one will be an SI, this will be a GI, team and self will be an ST, and team and group will be a GT. Okay, so I'm going to try and count how many SIs I have to start with. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm going to double check, make sure I didn't miss any. So we have 6 people who study by themselves and play an individual sport. I'm going to change colors here. Now let's look for our STs. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people who study by themselves and play a team sport. GI, so that's people who like to study in a group and play an individual sport. So we have 1, 2, 3 people who study in a group and play an individual sport. And one last color here. So we have GT, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those. Okay? And then I can fill in my rows and columns here. So 6 plus 3 is a total of 9, so there's 9 people who play an individual sport. There are 11 people who play a team sport for a total of 20 people. And then going across, 6 plus 4 is 10 total people who like to study by themselves, and there are 10 total people who like to study in a group. And nice to know here that 10 plus 10 does in fact equal 20, so our math does add up. But if we were unsure, we could always count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and there's 2 charts, each with 10 people. So there's a total of 20 students that we looked at here. Okay? So again, please, please be careful. Make sure you're reading, make sure you are reading this little key, and that will tell you how to read this and help you set up the two-way table, okay? So it's very, very specific that you look at that. And I believe this is day 3, yep.